And so, Madam President, I can read the formal act, but I just want to make sure they understand those points, because I have some Rasta man in Bethel say, tell me boy, Western boy, me tell you, the black of me, white with smoke. So 6A, Madam President, notwithstanding Section 6, a person is not guilty of an offense, so it's no longer a criminal offense. And no penalty shall apply with a controlled drug is of a quantity of 15 grams or less.
Pointe FM. This is Pointe FM 99.1.
Broadcasting from the Pointe community, you're listening to Pointe FM 99.1.
This is Pointe FM's nightly news for Thursday, the 15th. 2018. Public schools to be retrofitted with CCTV cameras. A government senator describes the high number of imported used vehicles as unsustainable. Trinidad's Commissioner of Prisons launches an investigation into the use of internet in correctional facilities. And the FBI launches a review about its handling of a warning about the teenager in Wednesday's school shooting in Florida. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday evening. Welcome to those of you listening by radio, those via our app, those of you who have tuned in via Facebook Live, and those via our website, pointefmradio.com. I am Phil George. Government Senator Darrell Matthew believes the high number of vehicles being imported into the country is quickly becoming unsustainable, and he wants government to deal with what will soon be a problem of too many vehicles on the roadways in the country. Making his contribution to the budget debate in the upper house of Parliament on Wednesday, Matthew noted that the rapid increase recorded in vehicle importation, especially used cars, is cause for concern.
I've been able to pull some statistics together, Madam President, and what I realized is absolutely shocking. In the year 2015, Antigua and Barbuda imported 2,216 used vehicles. In 2017, that number went up to 2,564. In 2016, I'm sorry. In 2017, it went to 3,268, bringing a total of 8,048 used vehicles coming onto the road in a 3-year period. When you add that to another 3,000 new vehicles that came on the road, you're looking at approximately 11,000 vehicles new coming on the road in a 3-year period. And that has some social implications. Traffic accidents, simply because there are just more people driving, road fatalities, wear and tear on our roads, congestion, road rage, frustration, that sort of thing. It's not sustainable.
He says while the government is focused on road rehabilitation and construction, the increasing number of vehicles is making it impossible to accomplish such an undertaking, adding that there isn't enough land space for new roads to be constructed. Senator Matthews stated that Antigua and Barbuda cannot afford to continue being a dumping ground for used Japanese vehicles. While he does not support a ban on reconditioned cars, he says the importation of very old vehicles should be addressed.
I do not support a ban on used cars, but we need to find a way to really the problem we have, particularly of the 12 and 13 and 14-year-old vehicles coming in to the country, which may reasonably only have a lifespan of another year or two, and then they end up on the side of the street or in cooks. It's not sustainable. We have to be more cognizant of what we are doing, and we have to protect the environment.
That's Government Senator Darrell Matthew. 5 public secondary schools are to be retrofitted with closed-circuit television cameras by next week to counter constant vandalism and theft. The announcement was made today by Minister of Information, the Honorable Melford Nicholas, during the weekly post-cabinet press briefing. Cabinet says it views the security of schools as exceedingly important, adding that the cost of human security has become very costly. More effective, yet less costly technology is to be applied wherever possible. All Saints Secondary, Princess Margaret, Jennings Secondary, Otto's Comprehensive and Antigua Grammar Schools are the institutions identified for the installation of cameras. The Ministry of Education is receiving reports almost on a weekly basis of theft and vandalism. All Saints Secondary School was vandalized twice in at least a month with graffiti on several buildings on the school's compound. Damage was also reported as the vandals allegedly threw rocks at glass windows.
I gave the minister yesterday a commitment that we would start the project on Monday and that we will accelerate it as quickly as we can get to it. Oftentimes it's kind of not advisable to put the timeline when you're doing, because field requirements can change certain circumstances. But the minister did emphasize at very great detail yesterday the urgency of the matter, and we have given a start date of Monday of next week.
Asked whether the installation of cameras will mean a reduction of physical security, the information minister says there is a place for manpower also.
Several of these security companies do provide hybrid services, so they're not only providing man security, but they also provide electronic security as well. So in this instance, this arrangement that we're looking at, we're procuring the services from one of the security companies. So I think what you will have is a mix of jobs. You may well find that there are certain instances that electronic surveillance may not be the best fit, and that there will continue to be the need for physical manpower. But I think any reduction in the need for man security and any lowering of demand for jobs in that particular area could lead to other efficiencies in other areas.
Commenting on the announcement, Director of Education Claire Brown welcomed the news, noting that repeated break-ins and vandalism at schools were proving costly for the Board of Education. He said monies that would otherwise be used in the advancement of student learning are being diverted to effect repairs. It was revealed that the Ministry of Information and the Public Communications Safety Network will bear the responsibility for surveillance once the cameras become operational. Cabinet says the long-term plan is to have security cameras installed at all public institutions of learning. Antigua Public Utilities Authority has outlined the guidelines under which its eligible consumers can benefit from the utilities debt write-off. The debt write-off period began Wednesday and will end on May 18th. To access the program, members of the public who fall into the category should visit the Customer Service Department APUA Business Center on the first floor there on Independence Drive. APUA stated that the status of account to date must still be disconnected. Arrears must have been accumulated on or prior to September 30th of 2017, at least 90 days disconnected in 2017. Account owners or approved designate, that is tenant, for example, must apply for the relief. Only domestic and residential electricity, water, and landline telephone services will qualify for relief. The utilities company also indicated that accounts with tampering charges are subject to further approval by the business unit manager. Locations found tampering during reconnection phase will not be reconnected, but will be subject to further approval. Prime Minister Gaston Brown announced the debt write-off during his 2018 budget presentation last month. Mr. Brown acknowledged the difficulties some citizens and residents are experiencing, which leads to a disconnection of vital services due to their inability to pay their utility bills. The United Progressive Party's Senator Sean Nicholas is questioning whether politics is behind the lack of urgency on the part of the government to resettle Barbudans back on the Sister Isle. Senator Nicholas, speaking this afternoon in the upper house of Parliament, says she believes there is a move afoot to delay the process in the interest of the government, who may have lost favor with the residents of the Sister Isle.
Madam President, we were made to understand that the Barbuda seat is one of those seats that the Labour Party has given up. They're saying we can't win it. And is it a situation that they're saying, okay, we can't win it, so those who are here, let us do what we're doing now and send them in a different constituency to transfer in terms of their vote so they can vote here and shore up their seats here? Don't bother to go back or we don't lose that seat. Madam President, this is what we're understanding. So is that the reason why, Madam President, why there is no urgency in getting the people of Barbuda resettled in their homeland?
Senator Nicholas has called on the Barbuda People's Movement, the party aligned to the United Progressive Party, to stand their ground, adding that the party of which she is a member will place Barbuda on a sound footing.
Trevor Walker, I ask you to continue to be steadfast. Continue to be steadfast. The people of the BPM continue to be steadfast in Barbuda, because we will help you get Barbuda back on track.
That's Opposition Senator Sean Nicholas this afternoon. Well, government has admitted the rebuilding program on Barbuda is moving at a slow pace, and that it is in part due to the unavailability of Barbudans to assist in the process. Calls have been made for Barbudan residents to participate in the rebuilding of their island. But Chief of Staff in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ambassador Lionel Maxhurst, says there are several reasons for the lack of response, but none has to do with what the opposition may be suggesting.
I had the benefit of being on Barbuda on Tuesday and interviewed, talked with a number of people, both from the volunteer groups that are there, as well as from the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force. And there is a problem in getting workers over to Barbuda. You can imagine why. First, housing is inadequate because many of the homes have been destroyed. And many Barbudans are gainfully employed in Antigua or are engaged in activities in Antigua that makes it sort of difficult for them to return to Barbuda. So there is a problem with work crews, there's no doubt about that. If there were more workers in Barbuda, more masons, carpenters, roofers and so forth working, we could have some of those level 2 and level 3 homes quickly repaired. The problem we are having is that not as many workers wish to go to Barbuda. Not as many Barbudans wish to return under the conditions that now exist.
Meantime, Cabinet spokesperson, Information Minister Melford Nicholas says bringing Barbuda back to normal is a process, and he's appealing for patience.
It's an incremental process, and once we are continuing to make progress on a daily basis, we will get to that point where sufficient homes are restored and made available. And as I say, when the rest of the commercial events that are going to take place in Barbuda proceed, there will be private sector monies as well that can drive some of the options that we want to have in Barbuda.
In other news, the master of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Fidel Corbin Lincoln, has ruled that statements made against Prime Minister Gaston Brown by the United Progressive Party Public Relations Officer and Senator Damani Tabor and aired on Observer Radio can be submitted to the courts for defamation. In the judgment claim, the Prime Minister is suing for defamation for statements made on Observer Radio on January 4 of 2017. The judgment states that during a live broadcast, the senator made libelous statements inferring criminal corruption, misfeasance in public office, and a breach of fiduciary duties. The interferences, the judgment claims, were by way of innuendo directed to the Prime Minister. The filed documents state that the claim concerns alleged defamatory statements made by the first defendant, Senator Damani Tabor, on Observer Radio, which are alleged to have defamed the claimant. Master Fidela Corbin Lincoln stated in the judgment filed in the High Court of Justice that He bear in mind, however, that in considering that the words are capable of meaning, the court is not determining what the words mean to the court, but rather what they could possibly convey to the ordinary person, that a layperson will read into words an implication that is more freely than a lawyer and may indulge in a certain amount of loose thinking. The master noted that they bear in mind that the court should refrain from an over-elaborate analysis and that the pleaded defamatory meaning is treated as the most injurious meaning the words are capable of bearing. More importantly, the court's task at that stage, they said, is not to determine what the words actually mean, but rather whether they are capable of the pleaded meanings. The Prime Minister and his legal team, it was noted, intend to move forward with his lawsuit for defamation. Though the judgment claim is being brought against both Senator Damani Tabor and Observer Radio, it was revealed that an indemnity agreement was made between Senator Tabor and Observer, which some say debatably would safeguard Observer from any lawsuits resulting from his assertions on the radio. In July of 2017, the media group banned the UPP PRO until he furnished the company with a waiver and indemnity. Mount St. John's Medical Center now has a hyperbaric chamber, a donation made by economic envoy Calvin Eyre and his foundation. The equipment was handed over to the government during a ceremony on Tuesday at Mount St. John's Medical Center. Calvin Eyre, addressing the small gathering, said the project is humanitarian, especially with respect to local fishers. The loss of just one person, he noted, can be devastating and unnecessary, and they hope that having the new hyperbaric chamber will make decompression sickness a thing of the past. Minister of Health, the Honorable Malwin Joseph, has commended Mr. Eyre and his foundation for their philanthropic gesture and says the equipment, valued at more than $200,000 will go a long way in assisting persons whose lives depend on the service it provides. In the past, the government relied on Guadeloupe to provide such assistance. Minister Joseph used the opportunity to appeal to corporate Antigua and Barbuda to play its part in assisting the government.
Mr. Calvin here, in a short time, has demonstrated his understanding of the importance of corporate social responsibility. We need, for many of our corporation and business enterprises, to fully appreciate that government cannot do everything, especially in these times when we are facing severe social dislocation of many of our citizens and residents.
The chamber was donated by the Calvin Eyre Foundation, as mentioned, and came about after the decompression sickness or Ben's death of a local fisherman and diver, Andy Samuel, in 2017. According to the Mayo Clinic, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a well-established treatment for decompression sickness, a hazard of scuba diving. Other conditions treated with hyperbaric oxygen therapy include serious infections, bubbles of air in one's blood vessels, and wounds that won't heal as a result of diabetes or radiation injury. That's a look at the national developments this Thursday evening. Stay tuned. More news to come from across the region and internationally.
An accident can happen at any time, and being involved in one is not a good experience. It can be tragic and expensive, especially without coverage from State Insurance. At State Insurance Corporation, we protect you from facing these challenges alone. Our private motor insurance policy covers accidental collision, fire, windscreen damage, acts of God, bodily injury, theft, medical expense, accidental death, and dismemberment. Visit our website at www.sicntiga.com or call us today at 481-7800 for more information. State Insurance Corporation, for your protection and our economy.
Thank you so much for staying with us this Thursday evening on Point FM's Nightly News. The time is 11 minutes on 7 o'clock evening time in Antigua and Barbuda. If you're just joining us, public schools to be retrofitted with CCTV cameras. 5 institutions have been identified for installation by next week. And a government senator describes the high number of imported used vehicles as unsustainable. In news now from across the region, an investigation has been launched into the use of the internet in correctional institutions across Trinidad and Tobago. According to Commissioner of Prisons Gerard Wilson, the investigation follows reports of another video began circulating on social media which was filmed behind bars. In the most recent video, an inmate is overheard abusing another, demanding the new password for Wi-Fi. The inmate, who could not be seen, was heard threatening the other inmate, saying he changed the password and he spends his money to get the internet. In an interview on Wednesday, Wilson said he saw the video and already began preliminary investigations. He said they are identifying the persons and launched an investigation into it. They get their devices and the main goal is to get rid of those who help, he said. He noted that they must start looking internally and then look outside, adding that those persons intent on making the prison look bad. Wilson said it did not look good for any organization, especially the prison service, to see those videos. Gerard Gordon, secretary of the Prison Officers Association, said it was one among many challenges faced in every prison across the world. The Commonwealth Secretary-General, Patricia Scotland, on Wednesday welcomed the decision of the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, to refer the long-standing border controversy between Guyana and Venezuela to the International Court of Justice. Scotland recalled that as the September 2007 meeting of the Commonwealth Ministerial Group on Guyana, ministers noted Guyana's concerns that the long-standing controversy has impacted on the country's economic development. The Commonwealth Secretary-General further recalled that at the last Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta in November of 2015, the leaders noted that the Geneva Agreement of 1966 between the parties provides a range of mechanisms for an expeditious solution to the controversy arising from Venezuela's contention of invalidity of the 1899 arbitral award. The heads expressed their full support for the United Nations Secretary-General to choose a means of settlement in keeping with the provisions of the Geneva Agreement 1966 to bring the controversy to a definitive end. The Secretary-General reiterated the unequivocal and collective support of Commonwealth member governments for the maintenance and safeguarding of Guyana's sovereignty and territorial integrity, according to the statement released by the UK-headquartered Commonwealth. In St. Vincent, the parents of the former model Yuge Farrell, who is charged with using abusive language to the wife of a senior government minister, appeared in court Tuesday charged with attempted murder and arson. Gayleen Farrell and her common-law husband Calvert Charles are charged with the November 1, 2017 attempted murder of fellow Lomans Bay resident Edward Durant. They are also charged with arson in connection with a fire at the man's home on the same day. The prosecution alleges that the couple lit the house on fire and chopped him as he attempted to escape. But when the matter was called on Tuesday, senior prosecutor Adolphus Delflesh said that he's yet to receive the file from the investigator and sought an adjournment to March 26. Farrell came to national attention on January 5th when she appeared in court to answer a charge that the previous day she used abusive language at Karen Duncan Gonzalez, the wife of Finance Minister Camilo Gonzalez. The court then ordered that she be sent to a psychiatric hospital and after a 3-week stay was granted $1,000 in bail. The former model, who has since claimed that she was in an extramarital relationship with the finance minister, will return to court on December 17th. Turning now to developments internationally, the FBI has launched a review about its handling of a warning about the teenager accused of carrying out Wednesday's school shooting in Florida. Nicholas Cruz, 19, has appeared in court charged with murder. With 17 people killed, this is the deadliest U.S. school shooting since 2012.
There have been numerous warning signs ahead of this shooting. That is now clear. The shooter on social media, on YouTube, declared that he would be a professional school shooter. The FBI knew of the threat. Here in Parkland, administrators warned about his behavior to teachers. Students even predicted that he could be capable of something like this. So questions are certainly being raised about whether opportunities were missed to prevent this tragedy.
Cyril Ramaphosa has become South Africa's president a day after embattled leader Jacob Zuma resigned. He was the only candidate nominated by Parliament, which is dominated by his African National Congress. MPs broke into song at the announcement. In his first presidential speech, Mr. Ramaphosa, 65, said he would tackle the corruption which allegedly became widespread under Mr. Zuma. The ANC had told Mr. Zuma to step down or face a vote of no confidence. Mr. Zuma faces numerous corruption allegations but denies any wrongdoing. One allegation is that he allowed the wealthy Gupta family, with whom he has personal ties, to wield influence over policy in an example of state capture. An arrest warrant has been issued for Ajay Gupta, one of the three most prominent Gupta brothers, officials said on Thursday. It follows a raid by the Hawks, an elite police unit, on their home on Wednesday. The family has denied corruption allegations. The former Oxfam director, accused of hiring prostitutes while working in Haiti and Chad, has denied paying for sex but admitted some mistakes. In an open letter, Roland Van Hoover-Merin, 68, denied that a reception he hosted in Haiti was, as alleged, a sex party. He said he had intimate relations with a woman in earthquake-stricken Haiti who was not a prostitute. The scandal has put Oxfam at risk of losing funding from the United Kingdom and the European Union. Archbishop Desmond Tutu has become the latest high-profile figure to end his ties with Oxfam over the scandal. He will no longer be an ambassador for the organization. A statement said the 86-year-old Nobel Peace Prize laureate was deeply disappointed by allegations of immorality and possible criminality involving humanitarian workers linked to the charity. The UK Charity Commission has launched a statutory inquiry amid claims that Oxfam covered up cases of sexual misconduct in Haiti. UK newspaper The Times has accused Mr. Van Hoover-Merin of using prostitutes at a villa rented for him by Oxfam while he was in the country delivering aid after the 2010 earthquake. That's a roundup of regional and international developments this Thursday evening. The time is now 2 minutes on 7 o'clock. The weather report is next.
Forecast for Antigua and Barbuda and its coastal waters out to 10 nautical miles, valid until 8 p.m. tomorrow, Friday 16th February 2018.